Let's take a look at a week of action in Australia in the name of Palestinian life and liberation. First of all, an action that I was lucky enough to be able to attend and film. A series of activists in Queensland who went to sit in at Jim Chalmers' office. Office got the idea that they were coming and they locked the doors, but the activists did do a blockade out the side of it instead. Let's listen to a little bit of some of the speeches and then we'll get on to a bit of a review of what's happened in Australia in the past week in the name of pro-Palestinian activist action.
Jim Chalmers, you can't hide!
You're supporting genocide!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
We are here because the Australian government, of which Jim Chalmers is a senior cabinet minister, is aiding and abetting the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza. We are here to deliver a letter to Jim Chalmers and to demand that he takes our message to the federal government.
They've killed over 10,000 people! Tens of thousands more buried under the rubble. And there are thousands who are starving and dying of thirst because Israel has cut off the supply of food and water.
Shame!
As an Aboriginal person, it's disturbing because this is exactly the kind of thing that the Australian government did to my people. To me, Gaza is nothing but a massive mission, a prison camp where people are sent and trapped. People who can't leave without the permission of the Israeli government, the colonial government. That's what the Australian government did to my people.
Shame!
The rights of Indigenous people are incomplete everywhere if they are incomplete anywhere. And they are certainly incomplete in Gaza. They are certainly incomplete in Palestine.
This genocide in Israel, by Israeli in Palestine, in Gaza, it is unacceptable. That is a crime. That is collective killings. We would not justify those children that they got killed in Israel. But this is not the way to retaliate and keep killing. For the last 3 weeks, more than 12,000 people has been massacred and killed.
Just recently, just over a month ago, the ALP took us into a referendum which unleashed sickening racism, which allowed the racism to come to the fore. Albanese said that he was a friend of Aboriginal people. In the same month, he turned around and began greenlighting a genocide. Aboriginal have constantly stood in solidarity with the Palestinians because what we see over in occupied Palestine at the moment is what we saw here on the Queensland frontier. And it was these people over here who were the perpetrators of it. The were complicit and outright conducting the murders of Aboriginal people. Over in Israel at the moment, over in Gaza, we are seeing a genocide that could not have happened without the compliance of not only Australia, the US, but all Western governments, but also the mainstream media.
When you're a refugee and you can't get a job and you have to build community yourself because no one is really there to look after you, you centre around important spaces like mosques and places of worship. On October 30th, the Israeli forces bombed a mosque. They launched a missile, bombed a mosque and killed at least 2 Palestinians. This is a war crime under any reading of the Act. And under Commonwealth law, it is illegal to arm countries and groups that are accused of committing war crimes.
Zionism, which is the force that guides the Israeli nation, is an imperial state-building project that demands the subjugation of all ethnic diversity to the dominance of the Jewish people on the land known as historic Palestine. Judaism is a 2,000-year-old constellation of religious and cultural identifiers, the roots of which can be traced back to core ethical and spiritual tenets. Not only are they not the same thing, their objectives are fundamentally incompatible.
It's one thing and one gauge of whether your event is popular with the community or not if people randomly from the community start pulling up and beeping in support of it. Quite another thing to have those people then impromptu stop and start speaking at your rally.
I am a teacher. I teach primary school children. And to see 4,000 children killed in the name of self-defense is not on. To see a child, half a child killed is not on. I have a young child. This is absolutely not okay. They are killing over 4,000 kids in 3 weeks.
Shame!
And they're calling it self-defense.
Shame!
They're bombing hospitals and they're bombing mosques and churches and they're saying we're looking for Hamas. Well, have you found any Hamas in bombing all of these important places? Have you found any Hamas? They have bombed hospitals where people, thousands of people, are seeking refuge. How disgusting!
I had a brilliant day attending this action and I really admired the work of everyone here, and I hope to be able to attend much more like it in the future as direct action ramps up. The only problem really came on the day when one tiny QPS maggot arrested a comrade of ours for the crime of walking along the road like we're all fucking doing. I think the little maggot picked on the smallest person he could. Small physically, that is. I mean, morally, they tower over him. Let's have a look at some of the many other actions, both rallies and direct action efforts that have been taking place around Australia over the past week. On November the 3rd, Anthony Albanese was in Darwin trying to host a $5,000 a head dinner, apparently. Instead, what he got was a series of anti-genocide activists chasing him around, calling for him to cease his complicity in the unfolding attempted genocide. I don't have the time to explain that complicity in depth right now, so I'll just hand it to Norman Finkelstein.
When you oppose a ceasefire at this point, you are in effect and in fact, you are in effect and in fact giving Israel carte blanche to continue to indiscriminately target the civilian infrastructure and the civilian population of Gaza, 1 million of whom, or 1,100,000 of whom, are children. You have become a moral monster.
Melbourne rallied in its masses last Sunday. They reckon around 100,000 people. Know it's a popular cause when it has that many. Likewise, an enormous rally in Sydney the day beforehand. They're both reporting that the rallies are growing exponentially each week, which is amazing. They need to keep doing so. Last Monday, activists staged a sit-in in Melbourne Central. Apparently, the management of the centre were humane enough to not try and remove the protesters, which is brilliant. By now, it's an ancient tradition to shut down the Melbourne Cup for one reason or another, which I love Melbourne for. This time it was done in the name of Palestine. Look at this sick cunt on top of the van. Fuck yeah. Pressure by activists, including from the BDS movement in Australia, has resulted in RMIT ceasing its partnership with Elbit Systems. RMIT had partnered with Elbit in order to develop AI systems at the university, but Elbit also develops tests and provides weapons and drones to the IDF. Activists have been teaming up at ports around the world to stop the trade, in particular of a company called Zim, which supplies via shipping arms to Israel. Their nuisance efforts appear to be bearing fruit. Here is one Zim truck being forced to turn back. Please go and support these legends. This remains ongoing, this action. They'll need all the support they can get at the docks. Wednesday morning, federal member Peter Khalil's office was looking a little worse for wear. And in a very rare demonstration that not everyone in Canberra is a jellyfish, the Greens staged a walkout from the Senate over the lack of calls for a ceasefire from our spineless government. Oh, and last, but certainly not least,
Port Botany was today swarmed by pro-Palestinian protesters, with demonstrators taking to the water on jet skis with the intention of blocking the arrival of an Israeli ship.
Protesters standing firm on the land and in the sea.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
I'll tell you what, that jet ski shit is so mad, and I haven't seen anything this sick in direct activism for so long. And if you haven't been involved so much and you're a little surprised at the amount of action I've shown you that's been going on because you don't know about it, Little wonder our Australian media have spent their time bashing Palestinians for voicing up in aid of their own genocided people by deliberately misrepresenting the comments they've been making. But is that any surprise when a lot of these journalists are the lucky recipients of all expenses paid junkets to Israel? Israel's got to get its return on investment at some point, right? Not only have the mainstream media not been reporting on events, but we've even been getting reports that they've been taking down reports they've already published of actions in aid of Palestinian life. And now we know that ABC journalists are themselves having mass meetings with their employer to express how unhappy they are with the lack of frank coverage of what's happening to Palestinians right now. All in all, they cannot be fucking trusted, so don't follow them for accurate information on what's going on in your country in aid of Palestinians. Follow activist media, and as I keep saying every week in my ongoing coverage of activist action in aid of Palestine, follow the APAN website and the Stand With Palestine website for ongoing coverage of ways that you can take action. And I hope to see you at some of those forms of action at some point soon.